God is faithful. He is faithful to us in all manner of speaking. He never fails to be faithful to His promises, to His people. And as a result of His faithfulness, we are called to faith. Last week I talked about compassion and the need to be open to the needs of people, to listen, to hear what they're saying, to understand their needs. Part of compassion is opening ourselves to other people. That's our mission, to go out into the world and show the compassion of Christ to the people in need. But we are to go not in our wisdom, not in our power, not by our own resources, but we are to go by faith. We are to go with God's help and trust. Jesus says, don't get any gold or silver or copper. God is going to take care of you. We need to be honest. We all live by faith in something. For example, how many of us trust ourselves? We may doubt it. We may say, oh no, I don't trust myself. But the reality is, we do all the time. We make decisions all the time. Well, I think it through, I made the decision, and this is what I'm going to do. How many of us trust in things implicitly? We trust the sun will rise tomorrow. We don't even think about it. We trust that the bridge we're walking over will stay up. We trust that the chair we're going to sit in this morning will hold us and be sturdy enough to do that. Sometimes we trust in our money, in our retirement accounts, and other things. The reality is we all live by faith in something. Excuse me. But the question is, will you live in faith of the faithful God? Will you be willing to give yourselves to God, to trust Him and walk with Him? You know, I've joked before that I feel safer driving than flying because I feel like I'm in control. So I believe in myself, but that shows a lack of trust. If God can take care of me on the road, He can take care of me in the air. We need to have faith. We need to trust. But faith is more than trust. Faith is more than a belief. Faith must be acted out. Real faith is not an affirmation of faith. It is action. Faithful, loving action, following what God has asked us to do. One of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 37, where it says, trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in His land, enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in the Lord. He will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in Him, and He will do this. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. We are asked to trust in God and commit our way to Him. And then that trust will become a reality in our lives. Trust, delight, commit. Jesus is saying in this passage, the mission that He has for us to do, to go out and love and share and be compassionate and touch people's lives. If you look at what it says, they are to go out and heal, they are to raise the sick, they are to do great acts of grace. Preach the gospel, tell them the kingdom of heaven is near. All of that is our responsibility. All of that are things that we are called to do. But you go, I can't do it. You're right, you can't. Not by yourself. Not alone. But we don't go alone. Jesus sent these people out, but God and His Spirit were going with them. They were asked to trust God, to trust in Him, to believe in Him, to do the things that they were called to do step by step in faith. And as we look at this passage, the first thing that they were to trust is that God would provide for them. They weren't to go and collect all kinds of money and get their clothes ready and go traveling. They were to go from town to town preaching the message and trust that God would put somebody there who would take care of them. In our lives, we need to learn to trust God. He will provide. In the wilderness wandering, the children of Israel worried about water. They worried about food. And God provided for them. And God promises He will provide for us as we go forth and do the work that He asks us to do. As you read through here, take no bag for your journey, or extra shirt or sandals or staff, for the work is worthy of His keep. God will take care of you. God will provide for you. The second thing that we need to do is we need to trust God that He will take care of us, even as we do it the way that He asks us to do it. Let me explain what I mean by that. Jesus says, I am sending you out like sheep among the wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. Be on your guard. He says that we are to go out like sheep. Innocent, powerless sheep. But we will be among the wolves. But we are not to take on the wolf clothing. We are not to become like them. We have to give up the tactics of the world. They hit us, we hit back. Unfortunately, we've seen that far too often in the history of the church, and even in modern days. We don't like somebody, they're doing evil to us, so we do evil back to them in the name of God. Jesus says, go out like wolves, or like sheep among the wolves. Be gentle. Now, as you go out, that doesn't mean you're innocent. He says on, be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. Shrewd as snakes means that we understand what's going on. We realize what's happening in the world. But we do so innocently. We do so in a way that continues to show our desire for peace and to do what is right. So innocence doesn't mean naive. Innocence doesn't mean unawareness. It simply means that we go and we are not going to be part of the strategies, the way the world works. We are called to trust God to do it His way. In 1 Peter 2:21, it says, to this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving an example that you should follow in His steps. He committed no sin. No deceit was found in His mouth. When they hurled insults at Him, He did not retaliate. When He suffered, He made no threats. Instead, He entrusted Himself to Him who judges justly. We are to be innocent, even as they treat us, or mistreat us, I should say. And if we do what's right, people will not appreciate it. Standing for what's right will not receive the praise of everyone. We will find enemies. And the reality is, in this world, we'll find enemies if we take the right stand, whichever direction we go. If you want to think of it politically, you take a stand for right. Sometimes the people on the right are going to dislike you, and sometimes the people on the left are going to dislike you. But we stand for the truth and try to do what's right. Along with that, as we go out, he says, they may arrest you. They may put you in prison. But he says to them, don't worry about what you will say. As we go out, I know many of you are going, well, I don't have the words to say. I don't know how to go out and tell people about Jesus. I don't know how to encourage people. If we trust God, He will give us the words. It says His Spirit will come upon us. We know that Pentecost, the Spirit came down. It indwells all those who believe. You don't have to have great words. You don't have to have this incredible speech planned out. When you need it, God will provide you the words. Doesn't mean we don't study. Doesn't mean that we don't become familiar with it. But we are called to have the faith to believe that God will provide us with the words that we need. As he goes on, he says, brother will betray brother to death, father his child, children rebel against his parents and have them put to death. The very foundational elements of our family get torn apart in the kingdom because one person isn't going to agree or believe it. And so often we find that these relationships, father to child, and we think about on Father's Day, what a difficult thing it is to stand for the truth. But Jesus says, you will be hated by everyone, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. We must trust God that if we are faithful, we will come through in the end. In the book of Ephesians, it says, finally, be strong in the Lord and his mighty power. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you've done everything, stand. Stand firm then. 1 Peter says, and God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. Be strong, be firm, be steadfast in your trust that the Lord will take care of it. As he goes on, he then talks about knowing what our real danger is. Trust God that he will protect us. Even if the world goes crazy and thousands of Christians in this time were martyred for the faith. But Jesus says to them, do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both body and soul. We are to realize that God is the one who will take care of us. We need to trust that no matter how bad the world goes, no matter how bad the situation goes, God will bring us through. Doesn't mean that we will survive. Thousands of Christians haven't. We have fortunately not ever in our country faced persecution and death for our faith. Who knows what may come in the future? But the reality is, no matter what happens, God is present and God will protect. So we have a God who will, if we stand firm, will bring us through. We have a God who will protect our souls, our very being. We have a God who will give us the words, who asks us to be faithful and trust him and do it his way. We have a God who says, I will provide. Trust that. And finally, he says, in this most intimate moment, he turns and he says to the disciples, are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. Go outside. If you're at home watching this, go outside after the message. Look at the birds and realize that God, according to Jesus, knows every one of them. Not one of them will fall to the ground. And after you're done, go look in the mirror. Maybe some of you might not have as many as others, but go look at the hairs on your head. God knows every one of them, he says. That is the depth and the level of the care of the God of all creation. He is faithful to us. He is faithful to you. And we are called to trust him, to live and act in a way of obedience towards him. As I said in Psalm 37, it says, trust, delight, and commit. Trust him, believe in him, and then you have to act on that. That's where the commitment comes in. We need to be willing to act and trust and do what he commands us to do. Next week, I want to take and focus our message on that commitment. As this passage goes on, he'll talk about love being the love of God being the priority, self-sacrifice and self-denial, and the reality that sometimes we have to lose our life to save it. So as you go forth this week, remember, we're called to trust. We're called to faith. Listen to the song, My Faith Looks Up to Thee.